welcome back to Coven. This is season 4, episode 6, maybe, or 7. Now they're all out of whack because last time we went way longer, so we're going to split all of these planet episodes up into 3. But we're back with Coco, of course, and Mauricio talking about each of the planets for our fragrance launch of Planets Perfumery. We had in our last episodes Mars and Venus, and this time we are going to be talking about Mercury, which is the final of our initial launch for Planets Perfumery. We're going to talk about the archetype of Mercury, the planet of Mercury, and we're also going to be talking all about the fragrance, the process of creation with the fragrance and what it's all about and how we can use it. So I'm going to go ahead and spray some Mercury.
Good idea.
Love Mercury. It's so funny because it was such a journey with Mercury. It changed so many times, and I had so many different feelings about Mercury. One day I was like, not my favorite. The next day it was like my favorite, and then not my favorite, and then my favorite. And that just feels very mercurial.
Very Mercury.
The whole process. Yeah. I can't wait to talk more about that. But to begin, we can start with some magic moments. I have a magic moment, which is a simple one, kind of random, but just the past month, I have been seeing 111 everywhere. And I always see numbers. 3 is a big number, and that's I just pay attention to them, but I always take it with a grain of salt because I'm always in my head, oh, that just could be a coincidence, whatever. But it has been insane, the amount of 111 that I have seen in the most random places. And I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm having all of these new beginnings starting. So that's all. Mauricio, did you have one?
That makes sense. Many new beginnings. Mine was a really interesting little cross-cultural Venus moment. Literally right after we finished chatting about Venus, the fragrance, I was on my phone and I came across this clip which I shared with you guys, and it was from some kind of anime. I have no idea what it was, to be honest. But it was this young woman doing this kind of very slow little dance to this slow music, and she transitioned with her dance the winter into spring, and so you see this really dramatic glittering rainbow lift of wind and snow and light, and the flowers and grass bloom, and it was just this really funny kind of video for us to see immediately after we talked about Venus. And there was also this other young little girl or woman that's in the story, and she had dark coloring in hair and dress, and it was very Ishtar, Ereshkigal, which was what we were talking about. And then I received an email from my dear friend in Miyoko in Tokyo, who supplies the Rose Absolute that is a big part of Venus, the Venus perfume. It's the heart of Venus, along with Daffodil and Jasmine Grandiflorum Absolute. And she commissioned me to create some incense for her. And so I shipped some incense over to her along with the sample of Venus. And she described the feeling of the energy from the package and the incense as being this counterclockwise circular spiraling feeling, which Coco, your face, which also was totally part of our conversation. And she said it the rotation, the backwards rotation of Venus.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, hello, there's our connection. So that was my magic moment, or recent magic moment.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
Because
and I guess
literally
also
in our text messages, Jenna was talking about Venus being upside down.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too, is that is also, I guess, another magic moment is after we talked about it in the last episode. I wish I had known this before so we could talk about this with Venus. But one of the theories as to why she rotates backwards is that she was hit a long time ago and completely flipped upside down. And so when we were talking about Venus as Inanna and the underworld journey and Persephone, makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And that video that you sent us was beautiful, by the way, Mauricio.
Yeah.
I watched it like 3 times.
Yeah, it was super pretty. It was really lovely, and I was like, "Oh, look, there she is."
Yeah. Gorgeous. All right. Shall we talk about Mercury?
Yes.
Okay. So we can begin with some of the astronomical fun facts about Mercury. Mercury is the smallest planet in our solar system. It's the closest to the sun. And it completes a full year, like a full trip around the sun in 88 Earth days. So very quick, short years. But it does have a very slow rotation on its axis. So in a single day, the single day night cycle is 176 Earth days. So similar to Venus, its years are shorter than its days, which is so crazy to think about. Yeah, and it's only in size, it's just slightly larger than Earth's moon. But its iron core takes up roughly half of the planet's volume, which I think is fascinating. And it has a largely cratered surface that looks similar to Earth's moon. There's no moons, no rings. It has the least circular, most egg-shaped orbit out of all of the planets, and it has a very weak magnetic field.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is super interesting.
That's not all, but that's all for this episode. I think it's interesting because you know how Venus has its the flower of Venus, as we've like observed Venus in relation to the Earth, it makes the flower of Venus shape. Mercury's version of that is very eye-like the way that it rotates in relation to the Earth forms what looks like a pupil and an eye, which is fascinating.
Yeah. Along with its like egg-like shape and like very interesting kind of hot and cold nature, it's like a very little cosmic egg situation, or seed, I guess, could be a way of like speedily. And then I think it's really interesting that they kind of exist not outside of time, but in this like folding of time that we like can't really imagine, like, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because as like deities, they were conceptualized as anthropomorphized deities. They were conceptualized as like immortals, right? Like beings that exist outside of time, that mortals, like, we can't really imagine what time is like for them. And it's like totally true. We can't imagine what time is like for them because it's like such a strange inversion of our own experience, right? Like our years fill our days fill our years, and that's how we age and change. And like days and years are like something completely different for some, planetary thing like that.
Conception of time is based on watching the sun move across the sky, and if that's not happening, what could that possibly feel like?
Mm-hmm.
That's why I love imagining it, because and I feel like this is mercurial as well, having the ability to imagine other realms, other ways of being, other existences, and then trying to somehow communicate about that, which is what you're doing right now, Mauricio.
Yeah, it's like, well, I mean, it could mean just like nothing, but there's also these little like things that are really interesting to think about. And I guess it's Gemini stellium, like it's both, right? Like it could be meaningless or it could be like ripe with meaning. It just, you choose which one do you want it to be.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I was so excited to do this episode was because I wanted to know what Mauricio had to say about Mercury, because of how all the Gemini in your chart.
Yeah, let's talk about the archetype, the myth of Mercury, because it is so fascinating. Mercury is, in my opinion, one of the hardest to like pin down and to get a really like solid grasp on exactly the archetype of Mercury, which is so mercurial because it's all over the place. It is shape-shifting, it's back and forth. It's like communication. Mercury is associated with Hermes, who is the messenger for the gods in Greek mythology, who's the only god who outside of like Persephone, who can go in and out of the underworld, but Hermes can do it at will whenever, back and forth. I have this theory that perhaps Hermes is Hades in disguise, which is why he moves so fast that you can't see him, you can't see his real face, and that's why he can go in and out of the underworld. That's just my own little idea. Um, yeah, I mean, Mauricio, do you want to give some of your takes on Mercury?
Yeah, I feel like the kind of most interesting way to engage that, or not most interesting, like the way that I think of to engage that, and one the way that I find interesting, and I've kind of always really been into symbolism and like any, young witch, I delved into sigils and glyphs and all such things. But one of the things I really became fascinated by was the structure of the astrological glyphs. And so if you look at Mercury, the glyph of Mercury, which is the circle of the soul, atop the cross of matter, which is the symbol of Venus, the difference between Mercury and Venus is that Mercury is crowned by the moon. And so if you're talking about like a masculine version of Persephone, then you could like say like you could identify the horns of the moon being placed upon Venus and her becoming a male aspect, or the male, or you can talk about the like fertile, like the fertile sun, the like serpentine gods that are like the vegetal gods of that are the sun slash consort of the earth mother. And then you can talk about like Odin and like those types of spirits if you're talking about like literal horned gods, or like the devil, a horned god. But these can be I translated or interpreted as masculine aspects of Venus, because Venus herself is already super transitionary, right? Like she rules both the heavens and the underworld and the emerald earth, and so she's like this mercurial thing as well. So then is Mercury the mercurial aspects of Venus? Like that could be, a conversation or like, an essay or
Yeah.
exploration. And so I think maybe my like answer being so mercurial with the stellium is still influenced by the fact that my Venus is at the 29 degrees in Gemini. So there's like kind of, I guess, still Venusian influence, and the way of thinking about in the second house. But I think of Mercury as kind of like a version, not a version, or like um, maybe it was like an intellectualizing of the like Dionysian spirits, potentially like the vegetal spirits, because that was still knowledge, that was ability to communicate with the land, with crops, with animals, with other beings that were not human, and understand things and calculate and observe and remember and communicate into the future, like plan. Those are all very mercurial things. But as human society changed, then those things changed. Like money became a part of the mix, and that's super mercurial. Markets are very mercurial, and in like Mexico, markets are thought of as ruled by like Santa Muerte. Like she is a spirit of commerce, and so she herself is mercurial as like a spirit of death, but she exists in the upper world in Mexico amongst so many people. She's conjured forth and called forth and worshipped by many many people, and so it's like this. I don't really know if that's like a super clear answer, but I don't really, I mean, it being Mercury, maybe there isn't really meant to be one. I'm not necessarily saying that like Mercury is a hermaphrodite or masculine version of Venus, but perhaps more so the the metamorphic nature of Venus, and of the world.
Yeah.
And like also though the ability to spring back into a shape from an original shape, but
Yeah.
maybe there was never an original shape to begin with. Like that could be, you know, you could think of Mercury as constantly, permanently nebulous. And then also I'm wondering, like Eros is like in Greek Hellenic mythology and in astrology, like Eros is this very is separate from Mercury, but I've always kind of wondered at how close Eros, if whether Eros is an aspect of Mercury especially when considered to be in relation to Venus, because of how curious Gemini is. And
Mm.
as like someone with a Gemini Venus, like there is this element of like stimulation that has to occur, and you can see it across the different, you know, Venus signs and Mercury signs. There are certain like buttons that can be pushed or connections that can be made or like, you know, things that can be lit. And so if we're kind of looking at the flirtatious nature of Gemini, that like attraction is necessary in order for Gemini to even be drawn to anything. So I don't know. I've kind of also had bee and butterfly energy associated with Mercury as well, and like pollinator energy, because it's like this cross species fertility dance that's occurring, right? And
Yeah.
so to me, that's always felt very like Gemini and Mercury. Then you have the Virgoan elements, right? The more chthonic aspects, the ability of Mercury to be a guide for the dead, to provide solace using Venusian mysteries, right? Venusian and Saturnal mysteries, these plant medicines and magics and rituals, to soothe people's hearts, to assure them that there are processes that continue after life into death and beyond, and that there are journeys that spirits walk and that they have walked before and that you are going to walk, you know, in the future. And so there, that also I think is kind of an aspect of Mercury that's very frequently kind of overridden by the intellectual nature of Mercury. This guide aspect, the kind of the not only the magician but also the like guide along the path, like what mugwort is identified as like a path opener, and so many mercurial plants are found along pathways like plantain,
Mm.
and also they're protective of the the journey person, right? Like what was Hermes known for? Protecting these like heroes, Odysseus, you know, on the Odyssey, where he gave him the secret of the Molly herb that protected him from Circe's magic. And so there's also this element of protection around journey and the attraction to journey and adventure and curiosity.
Mm.
But anyway, that's
Yeah,
my like convoluted sort of answer to like my interpretation of
that was
Mercury,
great.
again with the glyph and in mythology.
Yeah, I love that. I think, yeah, I'm thinking it's just making me think of like the overarching feeling of Mercury as like the bringer of consciousness in the
Yeah.
ways that it takes shape. It's like the channel through which like consciousness, like it is very connected to Venus in the sense that we were talking about Venus as like Venus's relationship of all things, and therefore it's like the binding that creates the fabric of reality, but Mercury is the channel through which the binding occurs. It's the channel
Mm-hmm.
through which these relationships occur. So they are inherently connected. And in alchemy, Mercury is the essence of alchemy. Mercury is, shout out Mandy Aftel in her book Essences in
Yeah.
Alchemy. But Mercury is like Hermes Trismegistus or Trismegistus. I never know
I
how
think
to
it's
say that.
yeah.
This,
Yeah, that is like this very mercurial element of like the Trinity, the divine
Mm-hmm.
three, the work of creation, and um, yeah, just everything you were saying was there were so many things popping up in my head. But I also was thinking that the fact that my Mercury is close to Pluto in my natal chart, I think I always think of the underworld elements of Mercury a lot more. Coco, what have you been diving into with Mercury lately?
oh, well, I mean, first, I just want to say that every single time Mauricio talks, I learn so much more. And I feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Because you just like open my mind to a million different ways of looking at Mercury. I had never thought. I mean, I thought about the glyph, and I always thought about the little, you know, what you call the crescent moon as just like antennas.
Well, that's very mercurial for sure. Maybe that's what she becomes. The
Yes, but
moon.
when you described it the way you described it, I was like, oh, that makes so much more sense. Um, But Mercury, what I've been reading about is such a trickster, so much trickster energy. And a lot of times when people think about trickster, they automatically go to the negative. But I love this one example that I always try to give clients when I'm talking to them in readings. I have a friend, she's got 6 kids, 2 of them are stepchildren, and she feels like they would be more safe in the home. And so she, packs the refrigerator full of food, makes sure that they have all of their favorite video games. And so like that is trickster energy, and she's a Gemini. And so, trickster energy isn't always a bad thing. To me, like what I've been reading about is like it feels very playful. It feels very like, why are we taking everything so seriously? Like,
Yeah.
come on, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and then just I was talking to you about this earlier, Jenna, about Mercury's ability to shape shift as well and become or merge with whatever planet it might be aspecting with, or it might be transiting. And so it's almost like, and also when we were first talking about the fragrances, how you were talking about how Mercury is also a part, or associated with the underworld, and I had never actually thought about that. To me, I was thinking Mercury, air, not underground. But yeah, Mercury does go underground. And I liked also your analogy with fungi and mushrooms, and also tree roots, and the communication underground between them. And so yeah, that's what I think about when I think of Mercury.
Yeah. Mushrooms, like fungal networks, fungi feel so mercurial to me, especially after like going through the process with these fragrances and with our fragrance, with how Mercury turned out. It has a very like it doesn't smell like mushrooms. I mean, mushrooms don't really have a smell, but it like to me it does kind of embody the essence of mushrooms.
It
And
does have a new mommy kind of like vibe to it. There's like
yeah,
totally sweet notes, but it kind of to me comes through like a savory honey sort of, or like herb, like honey
yes.
made from flowers, herbal flowers. And that's from the helichrysum, as well as probably a little bit of the cistus, and maybe also the papyrus. Actually, to be honest, combined with the cotton candy notes, it creates this kind of juxtaposition that pulls a little bit of that out. So I feel like that umami-ness is like part of the mushroom quality.
Yeah, totally. It's fascinating, and it just like just that feeling of like the mycelium networks, like the networks underground that move so quickly all across the earth, and then combined with the spores that are carried through the wind, um,
Literally across the planet, like so crazy. I
completely
think that's so cool.
across, yeah, everywhere, going just as freely above ground as below.
They not only travel through the heavens, but they also will condense water around themselves. So they create rain. They are part of this water cycle. They're integral components of the water cycle. So then, talking about this like association with weather deities, with spirits of spring, with serpents that bring forth fertility, with vegetal spirits and like Odin and the wind, talking about the air. Well, that is air. That's totally air, Coco. Like the movement of spores up into the air, creating rain. That's very air. Even though they
Yeah,
originate in the earth, right? They're earth spirits supposedly, and they can metamorphose and become airborne.
yeah.
So yeah, that's just like super. When you mentioned that just like so almost a year ago, I guess now, Jenna, when we were first talking about it, it was like, yeah, these like communication, nourishment sharing networks are totally like very mercurial. And then
Yeah.
there you can think about the theories, the like food of the god theories, that we developed our consciousness from eating psychedelic and theogenic mushrooms. and our own neural pathways mimic these mycelial networks, which mirror cosmic networks, which, Mercury,
Maybe
Gemini,
Mercury is a
Virgo.
mushroom. Maybe Mercury is
Dude, I
just
love the idea of Mercury as the mushroom. That
It
is
makes
like enlightenment in like the
yeah.
most intense sense, like crow, coyote stealing fires. That is what it was. They were like, eat this mushroom. They were
it
like, it
makes
was Jenna 5 million years ago, and she's like, you want this bone? And it was like, girl, you want this mushroom? And here we are.
I love
exactly. Yeah, it makes so much sense to me. And yeah, I guess to transition into like the fragrance and how we kind of developed the fragrance, it's such a fun story because it has gone through so many iterations. I know like because it's like what I wanted to embody with Mercury was like wind was a big thing I wanted to feel. I wanted to like feel like wind with Mercury, but I also wanted that sense of like communication and like some amount of like brightness with Mercury, but I also wanted like um I guess later on we came up with the idea, or Mauricio came up with the idea of like pencil or ink or paper of some kind. And then we at one point had the idea of like an espresso tonic, like this very like conscious, energetic thing that also had somewhat of a like earthy umami-ness to it.
Originally, we had explored the idea of doing the 12 signs, right? And we ultimately decided to do the planets, which was very cool and very fun. And so Mercury kind of had its roots in um, Gemini and Virgo. So Gemini was an espresso tonic. It had coffee and espresso notes and like warm brown sugary sweet notes, and then this like really bright sharp lemon top. And then Virgo was a lavender lily of the valley, white linen robes, and moss fragrance. And it had some of the mugwort and some of those mercurial herbs that you're seeing in. So I'm sure you guys who have smelled it and have looked at the notes can see how some of the notes wove into what is now Mercury, which was totally appropriate. But then we explored what the planet would smell, what the archetype of the planet could smell like, with these directions that you provided, with the like airiness in the wind and the desire to express communication and movement and thought. And so I was like, okay, how can we do that? Or how can we explore that? And I just kept coming back to the fern, which is the like, you all, I mean, anyone who's hiked around anywhere, I imagine there's ferns, but here on the West Coast, we got ferns everywhere, especially if you go into the woods and the forests and the redwoods. And they're beautiful, and they're really very, very quite mercurial in their nature, down to like the spores that they release in order to like replicate, to the like growing in the shades of the trees. And this, they're very like also super dreamy and mysterious, and kind of like point to either or conceal pathways, and so they're kind of protective or revealing in that way as well. And a really kind of prominent, or very, not kind of, very prominent structure in perfumery is the fougere structure, which was established around 200 years ago in the like 1880s. And it is built using very mercurial plants, which I always thought was really interesting and kind of fascinating. So it has like bergamot, which is pretty solar, but bergamot in itself is kind of mercurial in its like scent. It's like green and citrus and airy and bright and fresh. Lavender, which is deeply, deeply mercurial. Lavender is totally ruled by Mercury, and it's chthonic Mercury, so like Virgoan, earthy Mercury. And then there's geranium, which is like smells like a rose, but is a green herb, and so has this like also very kind of green fiery nature. So she's like kind of ruled and influenced by a variety of planetary energies. And then there is a coumarin note, which is tonka bean, that has like kind of like a halite quality. So all these elements, as well as like a neroli oil and jasmine, which are Venusian, solar, lunar, but also mercurial in their nature and the way that they express and people experience themselves, or the way that they express themselves and the way that people experience them, and shifting, right? Like they all kind of shift the way that you feel. They're mood elevating or like erogenous in the sense of jasmine or an orange blossom, and so they all kind of shift and change mood. This kind of was a really interesting component of that structure. But what made it a really important modern perfume is that it was one of the first fragrances to use synthetic materials. But it has since then been highly associated with masculine fragrances and like colognes and men's perfume and men's marketing, even though Hermes is like hermaphroditic, right? Mercury is the androgen. It's not Venus or necessarily even masculine Venus or Aries. It's like what was in between. Everything, let alone those two, but between everything. And so I was like, okay, well, how can we make this not like a man perfume, first and foremost? And also, how can I really like highlight the mercurial nature of these inherent ingredients and also make them a little more wild and a little more closer to kind of the vegetal god and a little less like, you know, money man Mercury, which totally is an archetype that exists today. And so I found some inspiration in anchoring these mercurial notes using these previous structures, the lily of the valley, the moss, the lavender, the really kind of fun, sweet, slightly umami, gourmand sweet notes. And they really linked harmoniously together and actually created these really fun kind of platforms from which the like woody kind of pencily and road opening mugwort and dream inducing mugwort could shine. The papyrus, the inky papyrus note that's there, really settled well into those sweet coumarin and woody notes. And then I ended up actually swapping out the moss notes for the honeyed immortelle, which to me really kind of has always had this golden Olympian Hermes vibe to it, and combined with the like airy aromatic notes that were given a vibrational quality by the pepper, the green to myrrh pepper, and like that created the like kind of experience of being on like a windy hillside to me. And I've gotten like some feedback that people kind of get that like hillside golden grass, kind of sea of golden grass and like expansive sky all around you. And I think that is kind of, that immortelle is where some of those really fun umami notes that kind of dance on people's skin in different ways, depending on like your skin, individual to individual. It's really fun to smell them on the way that it expresses itself.
Yeah, I had a friend who said without any prompting, I just was asking her what each of them evoked for her. And with Mercury, it was a giant field of grass.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
Yeah, which I thought was so interesting. And I didn't know that you'd been getting that feedback too. But it totally has that smell of wind that we wanted to capture with like a grounding to it. It's so beautiful.
It feels like warm, but yet airy. It's so hard to explain. I anointed my altar today with Mercury, and and I was cleaning the house all day pretty much, and I was like coming in and out of this room, and every time I walked in here I was like, it just smells so beautiful. And I have like a really quick anecdote about it too. I had to write a 20-page paper for my last semester of getting my master's degree, which I'm done. I'm officially have my master's, but I was like, the last semester I was like, I am done. I'm sick of school. I just want a break. And I just was like looking at my computer, and I did not have any, I was just blank. And then I said, fuck it. I'm just going to spray some of the Mercury and see what happens. And I was up for like hours just
rad.
And I was like, oh my God, this really works.
Rad. That's awesome. Welcome to my world. I'm like,
yeah. Yeah, I feel like Mercury, Mercury is so good. I'll wear Mercury to like get work done to write if I need to be like proactive. I have worn Mercury to like social gatherings if I want to like feel like socially confident, or to like create, to like go into the studio, to have ideas flowing. I also noticed that in my circle in San Francisco, it's a lot of like queer artists and musicians, and it has been consistently the favorite out of the
Oh,
three
cool.
community. And I think that tracks with Mercury is so queer. It's very, very like just androgynous, doesn't fit into any box, is whatever it wants to be at any given time.
Yeah, absolutely. It was it was like, I guess not necessarily the goal, it just felt like that's what it should be, was something that,
Yeah.
I don't know, like rewilding, I guess, the gender. It's just like you're kind of like, Mercury is, I think, just interested in expression, and there's no real fun or interest in
Mm-hmm.
everyone expressing themselves in the same way because they're told to. Like, that doesn't feel particularly mercurial to
Mm-hmm.
me. Um, yeah, and like, I mean, the way that you're using it is totally perfect. Like, it is meant to call forth the muses and to, like, you know, let them whisper in your ear all of those notes. Like, you know, I call them mercurial, but they are meant to be very either road opening or mentally road opening. Like, mugwort is notorious for giving people too many dreams, but also like kind of protective in the journey.
No
um,
wonder I've been having so many crazy dreams.
oh yeah, that's mugwort for
I've been
sure.
trying to figure out what is going on every night.
Yeah.
Why didn't you tell me?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, and sometimes it's like too
Okay.
many dreams, and people will be like, "We'll go crazy." Well, not go crazy, and I shouldn't say crazy, but like it could be
They've been
stressful
driving me crazy.
because you will. It could be stressful because then if like you're convinced that every single dream has meaning, then you're like, "What's going on?"
Yeah.
And like, but it's really just mugwort being like being a
Coco,
punk. The
have you
horns of the horns of the glyph of Mercury,
What a
yeah.
relief.
trickster.
Coco, have you ever had mugwort tea?
No, I haven't.
Oh.
No. Um,
Okay.
but I'm just relieved to know now that, because exactly what you said, Mauricio, I was like trying to put meaning. I was dreaming about
Oh
X
yeah, see, it's us
and
looking at the
people
egg-shaped
from like
planet.
forever ago, and I'm like, why? Why now?
Yeah, no, makes sense.
You you should try some mugwort tea if you want. It's like so intense. It's not as the first few times I tried it, I had it before bed. It was so potent and so intense. And since then I think it's like I've adapted to it or I'm used to it, so it's not quite as intense. But my first few times, because I read that mugwort tea will give you crazy dreams and it will help you lucid dream. Um, my dreams were so vivid the first couple times that I had mugwort tea before bed. So incredibly vivid. I lucid dreamt, but I had smell in my dream. And that's like
Whoa.
the final scent in your dream to like feel fully lucid. It like starts with vision and then it's I think like I don't remember the order, but like the senses come in one by one, and scent is the final one. Um, and it was so immersive. And I remember like I was on a mountainside, and I could literally smell what the mountain smelled like. It was insane. Anyway, it's really
That's
a
so
cool experience.
interesting.
I'll have to try it. Definitely, like, yeah. So just for those of you out there who want to lucid dream, this works. And now I'm thinking about it, and yeah, I remember. I think like we might have sprayed some mercury on our pillows, or even
Oh my
before we
gosh, you guys,
sleep,
you're like
and I didn't. I
off
had
into
no
the
idea.
universe, off into the astral. I
Oh,
find that so
cool.
interesting that smell is the last sense
Yeah.
for the lucid dreaming when it is the very first it's the very first sense that we developed, as in we as in our microbial ancestors, chemotaxis, like the movement towards specific chemical signals. And then also I can't say for sure that it's our first sense as like post portal incarnate beings, but it's like it's like how we find like where to latch on and how we identify our mother. because obviously we can't see, and then we don't really understand words to like hear and then taste. I mean, maybe it's taste, but that's very curious anyway, that it's a reverse. Essentially, like it got me thinking to the like reflection of Venus and all those, all those
I,
things.
I just have to, I'm sorry, really quickly. You just reminded me, do you guys know how, like, when dogs smell something, like how that affects them? Do you know how they, I heard that they
Yeah.
like, they can structure like, things that there's smelling. And I feel
Oh,
like,
shapes.
yeah. It's so
Mm-hmm.
crazy. So like when I take Lucita for a walk and she sits there for 5 minutes, I just let her go, and I just imagine her making this whole,
Glyphs of scent
story in
from
her head.
from the dogs. Like
Yeah, where this came from, where this dog lives.
I
She
like
looks around, and I'm like, what is going on in your
my
head?
friend has a dog, and he's always like stopping every little while, and he's so sweet. He's so sweet. He's a massive dog. He's fairly simple gentleman, and so I'm like always joking that he's just like, hey, it's Bunny. Like just everywhere. Hey, it's Bunny. Like every single time.
Oh.
But yeah, like dog sense of smell is crazy. They're gonna use that word, but they have more sensory neurons than we do, so they have a broader range of olfaction. Like you can't see, like we can't experience what they experience, or maybe they can see. I just it looks like that for us. But we have more neurons that are keyed or that induce association per receptor. So our powers of association are stronger than, and storytelling kind of creation is stronger than that of a dog, but they have a broader range and strong and much, much stronger sense of smell.
I wonder all of those things that you're just talking about. I'm like, what does the structure look like in her head? Is it like
Yeah,
really
right?
like what the
Like,
structure is, or is it something that she's just like making up in her mind? And honestly, when I see her little nose, her little eyes get so curious, and they just look like she just looks so like enchanted in that moment when she's sniffing whatever she's sniffing. And I just
Yeah.
like I love it. But I also think like for and we've talked about this many times, Mauricio and Jenna, you and I have on this podcast as well, but just like structural institutional hegemony and how much that has affected our blocking of something like the sense of smell, and how much we ignore that because we're conditioned to in society. And so that's why I'm like so excited
yeah,
that
well, it's very much also the othering of the natural world, right? Like, of like one's natural odor, of the smell of the other, the scent of the outside, of animals, of things that are dirty. I mean, like I've never smelled a forest that smells grosser than a dumpster in a city. Like, but like, the othering of the natural world, patriarchy, all the white supremacy, all those things are, as I definitely don't need to explain that to you or anyone, but those they're totally tied. It's totally a sanitization of the senses. And also I imagine, I don't know, there must be some other control. Like there is, I mean, there is an element of control when it comes to sanitization, and then obviously when it comes to like patriarchal ceremony, the use of smoke, the use of sacred smoke, to during like key components of ritual to like hypnotize people and enchant them. So
Interesting.
yeah, that's why I
that's
was
when the special, that's like when the special smoke comes out, right? Like not that special smoke, but the special smoke.
right. Right. That's why I was so excited that we're like basically, you are basically bottling archetypes. So I'm hoping that this will help to get people more
Yeah.
connected back to this, this realm that exists, that is there,
Yes, the
that we just,
multi-layered, the multi-dimensional. Like Mercury's not into sitting in one place and being stagnant. and also, you know, using your mind, using your brain, like we're like, I'm not gonna like go on an anti-AI rant, but we have evolved over millions of years to have these crazy, crazy, like maybe that's why it low key blows my mind, the Gemini and Capricorn stellium, that I'm like, we are computers. Like, are you not overwhelmed enough by what goes on in here? Use it for something.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just me. And like, you know, there is this really cool, there's a wonder at the human ability to create anything, whether it's, you know, art, writing, poetry, music, or perfume, or whatever. There's, or just even the exploration of an idea and expounding upon it is creation and, like, you know, progression. And so whatever it is that piques someone's interest and curiosity, I think that it's like mercurial to like go for it and just see
Yeah.
what happens.
I love that in the Mercury episode, we've gone into you talking about like scent and fragrance as a channel of communication, talking about the evolutionary like purpose of the sense of smell and how we use it to like understand our surroundings, and talking about using fragrance and scent as a way to um, open the world as like a guide.
Yeah, it does feel like this scent is like that a little more than the anointment and like kind of activation of the
Yeah.
other two scents. Like those are very much embodiment, and these, exactly like kind of you're saying, they're more portal door. This Mercury fragrance, just the nature of the botanicals that are in it. It's like
Mm-hmm.
portal opening.
And I think the fact that it is like similar to a fougere, a take on a fougere, like a flip of that, it's like it is sort of like this thing that is somewhat familiar to people. That's like, come here. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
not that way.
Yeah. Yes, and like I mean, I guess that's a good like metaphor for change not having to be really massive. It couldn't be this like invisible transformation. Like not all metamorphoses like are physical. Like we as human beings, I mean, we change crazy throughout, you know, our lives, but like some transformations that are faster are not physically apparent, and so that's also, I think, kind of a powerful thing to remember.
Yeah. I keep thinking about the Picatrix book that I have, and I don't know why, but it keeps coming up. So I kind of want to grab
Well,
it
open the page, see what it's
and read
saying.
what some
Very,
of the
it's very,
Mercury.
it's like the magicians of yore had a thing or two to say. Listen to.
I'm going to read what it says about Mercury in this chapter. Um, Mercury is the source of the intellective virtue. He has rulership over learning sciences and wisdom and dialect, grammar, philosophy, geometry, astronomy, astrology, geomancy, and notary art. Among religions, it rules those that are forbidden, and of those who speculate about religion, and those who delight in the ways of philosophy, and those who live according to the senses. Among clothing, it is linen clothing. Among professions, it is preaching, writing verse, building carriages, geometry, interpreting dreams, drawing, all professions that are discovered through subtle thought. Among tastes, it's those that are sharp. Among places, houses of preaching, and places where subtle masters work, and springs of water, streams, reservoirs, and wells. Among stones, it is all stones shaped and inscribed. Among minerals, mercury, and all stones that are raised up and used in noble works. Among plants, it is reeds, Kapuk, flax, pepper, and all plants with sharp smell like cloves, and all trees with fruit that has an outer rind. Among medicine, all gums. Among things that smell good, those for which are medicine and health maintenance, such as ginger, spikenard, and the like. And of animals, humans, small camels, zebras, apes, wolves, and of animals that jump or run swiftly, and all the beasts that feed through trickery. Among birds, those that fly smoothly and clearly, and those with perception and understanding, and those that have pleasant voices. And among small animals, those that move quickly, such as ants and the likes, and of colors, blue and mixed colors.
Love it.
Well, there you go. And anything
Probably
else? Not Mercury.
exactly. Probably won't keep all of that, but I just think it's so
Cotton? No.
fascinating.
Satin? No.
Nothing else.
Polyester,
Anyway,
she belongs to Uranus.
I was thinking
exactly.
when you were talking, I don't know if we like talked about it at all, but like the difference between like Virgo and Gemini, and I that was another thing that I was reading about is like, you know, because they're both ruled by Mercury, and you know, Gemini is knowing a little bit about many different things, and then Virgo is like honing in and just getting, you know, knowledge, you know, about like one sentence. I know every single thing about this sentence from beginning to end. I know how many letters, I know the punctuation, I know, you know, which, how many I's, how many T's, you know, that kind of thing. So it's interesting, just like the juxtaposition of those two.
Mhm.
One is, it's almost like they're the opposite side of the same coin.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the priestess versus the like pollinator, that's kind of like a little mirror metaphor where the pollinators are out like amongst all the flowers and like, you know, flowers, magic circles, little fertility rituals happening in like real time, really fast in these like rainbow little dances. And then Virgo as the priestess, as the oracle, she like guards the entry, the one entry into the underworld, into like more knowledge, into more experience, into evolution and metamorphosis and the underworld cocoon. And so she like is kind of like the guardian of the portal of the like this like nourishment as opposed to this like, you know, pollinator.
I love that analogy. I love that visual actually. That I've never thought of it like that, but you're right. Yeah, the pollinator and the priestess.
Hmm. This kind of brings us to the end of our Mercury episode. Coco, I just had an idea that could be fun to finish this with. Mauricio, you won't be as familiar with this, but you can chime in too. What if we tried to think of the 3 fragrances and assign each to somebody who we've covered on Coven?
Oh
Mm.
my gosh.
I mean, they would all love all of them, and they would all have so many different uses for them, and it's never going to be just like a one-to-one thing.
Okay. Octavia Butler, Mercury.
Uh,
Yes.
I was
Yes.
gonna say I was gonna even offer Mercury for Hildegard because it's so
Yes,
like botanical but also very knowledge oriented.
and her visions.
Yeah, and her visions. But
Hmm.
Octavia Butler is amazing, honestly. Like,
Yeah. There's also the Sally Miller Gearhart, which was with neither of you. That was episode 1 with Riley. But Sally Miller Gearhart, San Francisco icon, women and gender studies founder, created a lesbian commune, author of like fantasy books or fiction, I think novels too, and political activist. She feels very mercurial. As far as Venus, I feel like honestly Hilma af Klint. She's also mercurial, but like I feel like Hilma af Klint or Alice Coltrane with Venus with her harps.
Big
yeah.
time. Yes. Um, I for a second I couldn't remember her name, but Matilda Jocelyn Gage for Mars.
Ooh, totally. Yes. Oh, and Lucy Parsons
Oh yeah.
for
Yeah.
Mars. Um, Cookie? What about Cookie? Cookie Muller. Would she be Mercury, do you think, or Venus?
I
Or
think
have
she's a
we
combination of all
she's a
three.
combination. Yeah.
Because I like when I think of her, I think, you know, beauty, you know, relational beauty, but also beautiful writer, but also just constantly on the go.
Yes. Yeah. Ana Mendieta is also Mars.
Oh, really?
Mars, I feel like a combination of Mars and Venus. What would you say for Anna?
You know what? That's so funny because I thought Mars right away at first, but then I was like, but is that like, does that fit? But
It's
yeah,
her
I guess it
blood.
does.
It's her the blood
Oh,
like her
yes.
so about like violence in her, or like showing violence in her work, I think, if I'm remembering.
And she died a violent death too.
Mm-hmm.
That's very Marshall.
Yeah. Hypatia of Alexandria would be mercurial. For sure.
That.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
we could go on forever with this. Yeah. But super interesting. All right. Well, any final thoughts, any closing statements for Mercury?
It's
No,
beautiful.
let the journey take you where it will. Mercury do's you will.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, that might be, I don't know, is that a spell that we actually want to cast? We do.
Mercury, do as you will, but for the good of all and with harm to none. Well, I don't know about that either, actually.
Harm to the some that deserve it.
There we go. Yes,
harm to few that deserve
Put those
it.
horns to use. And that all-seeing eye.
Yes. All right. Well,
that's an interesting. Well, anyway, yes.
What were you gonna say?
No, the all-seeing eye, but that's like a little more Jupiterian, lunar, mercurial. But
yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, there's a few. I feel like the sun is kind of that too. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and I guess that's a little hint. Our next fragrances that will be out are going to be the sun and the moon. So there's a little teaser.
Sneak peek.
Yes. Excited for those. I cannot wait for those. Those are going to be so sick.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Same.
Well, this has been another episode of Coven. This is our episode on Mercury. Check out the other two on Mars and Venus to get the rundown of those, and we will be back soon.
Bye-bye.